The garden was silent, except for the whisper of wind through forgotten roses. Eleanor Whitmore came here to capture decay, to photograph beauty before it vanished. But when she pressed the shutter, something shifted. Time breathed, and in the space between one heartbeat and the next, she saw him, Nathaniel Ashcroft, standing among the wisteria, dressed in linen of a century past. She thought it was the light, until he spoke her name. She came to capture decay, and found a love that refused to die. The train from London to Gloucestershire hummed like a half-remembered lullaby. Outside the window, spring unfurled across the English countryside, meadows glimmering with dew, branches stretching into soft green flame. Eleanor Whitmore sat quietly, her camera case resting on her lap, the scent of rain-soaked earth drifting through the carriage. At 52, her eyes, grey as weathered silver, carried the patience of someone who had watched too many seasons turn without changing herself. London had grown too loud, too modern, too detached from the quiet spaces of memory. Since Michael's death, even familiar streets echoed with emptiness. Photography had been her refuge, but lately even that felt like a ritual, a way to remember who she had once been. The commission to document Harrowby Hall's gardens arrived like a silent invitation, a chance to breathe, to touch a past that still remembered. The station appeared like a painting brought to life, stone platforms slick with rain, mist curling around the tracks. Distant manor perched atop a hill, half hidden. Peter, an elderly man and caretaker, greeted her with a gentle smile. Miss Whitmore, the master's garden is still there, though not as it once was. Some say time forgot it. Others say it's still waiting for someone. Eleanor's lips curved faintly. Gardens don't wait, they just change. Peter's eyes lingered on her, as if he knew truths she had yet to see. The manor itself was a cathedral of memories, ivy-clad walls, cracked fountains, and windows that seemed to hold echoes rather than reflections. Inside, dust motes swirled through beams of morning light, transforming silence into something sacred. Eleanor unpacked her cameras in the old conservatory, where glass panes fractured the sunlight into golden shards, illuminating the lingering dust like stars suspended in air. It was there she discovered the photograph, a sepia print, tucked inside a leather-bound album. A man stood at a sundial in the centre of the garden, his gaze calm, almost expectant. Beneath the image, elegant ink scrawled, Nathaniel Harrowby, the keeper of the garden, 1887. The name clung to her mind like a whispered secret. Eleanor felt a flicker of recognition, though impossible. She whispered it aloud and the room seemed to pause, a draught stirring the curtains though no window was open. It's only the wind, she thought, yet her heart thumped as if the house itself were alive. That evening, she walked among the garden's overgrown paths. Marble angels leaned into ivy, stone benches wore moss like ancient robes, and a fountain cradled lilies floating silently on water. The mist hung low, softening the edges of the world. She photographed the fountain, the wisteria, the sun-bleached gate, every click echoing faintly, like a heartbeat suspended in memory. Through the lens, she saw it, a subtle movement, a shimmer among the ivy. Not wind, not shadow. A figure, tall, dark-haired, dressed in 19th century linen, as if born of the garden itself. Eleanor lowered the camera. Nothing remained, only the soft pulse of mist. That night, in the dim red light of her makeshift darkroom, she developed her photos. Most were soft, contemplative, echoes of time itself. But one frame made her breath hitch. There he was, more faint, translucent, standing near the sundial. Her first thought, a technical glitch. Impossible. No reflection, no double exposure could account for him. She traced his outline with her fingertip, heart thundering. As if I've seen him before, she thought, and instinctively whispered, "Who are you?" The silence answered, weighty and watchful. Morning came with mist curling over the garden, the stones slick with dew. Eleanor wandered to the sundial, where a small inscription glimmered faintly. "Time sleeps here, that love may wake." She laid her hand on the cold marble. A pulse or her own heartbeat? Then soft words broke the silence. "You shouldn't be here." She spun around. There he was, Nathaniel Ashcroft. Alive, solid, and breathing the same misty air. His eyes, ash-grey and infinitely calm, met hers with an unspoken recognition. For a long moment, neither spoke. The world seemed to hold its breath, suspended between centuries. Eleanor's hands trembled slightly, clutching the camera, the mechanical heartbeat bridging past and present. And in that pause, the garden seemed to awaken. The ivy rustled as though sighing. Petals floated without wind. Time itself bent toward them, patient, curious, and merciful. The morning mist lingered over Harrowby Hall like a soft veil, brushing Eleanor's hair and settling over the dew-drenched roses. She returned to the sundial, heart still pounding from yesterday's impossible encounter. Nathaniel was nowhere in sight, yet the garden seemed fuller somehow. Alive, breathing, aware. Eleanor adjusted her camera, instinctively capturing the light falling across the worn marble, petals drifting like tiny golden lanterns. She felt the weight of centuries pressing gently against the present, a soft hum that resonated in her chest. It was when she reached the fountain that she noticed the subtle tremor in the air, like the exhale of a world half awake. The reflection in the water was not entirely her own. She leaned closer, and for the briefest instant she saw the silhouette of Nathaniel beside her, bent to observe a water lily. The next moment the figure was gone, leaving ripples across the fountain's surface as if the past itself had sighed. Her pulse quickened. Eleanor took a deep breath. "I am not losing my mind, am I?" Her fingers hovered over the camera, the device suddenly feeling less mechanical, more like a conduit, a bridge. She wondered if the photograph yesterday had been an accident, or a summons, the garden reaching out across time, inviting her into its secret. Hours passed unnoticed as Eleanor explored the winding paths, every turn revealing echoes of a bygone era. Stone benches carved with initials long faded, hedges trimmed in geometric precision, and fountains sculpted with hands long dust, all whispering history. Yet she also noticed the oddities, subtle temporal anomalies that made her skin prickle. A shadow moving without source, petals fluttering upwards before settling, the faint, almost inaudible chime of a bell that didn't exist on any clock in the present. Then the voice again, soft, deliberate. "You see it, don't you?" Eleanor spun. Nathaniel stood beneath the wisteria, hands folded, eyes calm yet searching. His presence felt both distant and intimate, the boundary of centuries palpable. I don't understand," Eleanor admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "Most do not at first," he replied. "But the garden teaches those willing to look. Time, here, is patient, but it has rules." As they walked together along the rose-bordered path, Nathaniel explained the unspoken. The garden was not merely a space, but a nexus of time, a place where moments from the past lingered, waiting to be observed or interacted with. Eleanor's initial disbelief softened into awe, curiosity mingling with a creeping tenderness toward this man who existed as tangibly as the marble sundial and as evanescent as the drifting mist. Over the following days, Eleanor began to navigate the garden's rhythms, each visit revealing new truths. She discovered that certain photographs acted as keys, capturing not just light, but temporal echoes, moments that could be touched, relived, and even gently altered. Nathaniel, patient and guiding, taught her the subtleties. How a step too eager could disturb the past, how a word spoken aloud might ripple through decades. Their connection deepened with every shared discovery, quiet conversations punctuated by laughter, sighs, and the occasional lingering gaze that neither dared to name aloud. Yet adaptation was not without challenge. Eleanor wrestled with the ethics of interfering with history, the fragility of love stretched across centuries, and the haunting realization that returning to her own time might mean leaving Nathaniel behind, or worse, unravelling the delicate balance of the garden itself. Each choice bore weight, and each day tested the boundaries of her courage and her heart. It was during one late afternoon, golden sunlight slanting through wisteria blossoms, that Eleanor first allowed herself to linger beside him in silence. No photographs, no study, simply presence. She noticed the lines at the corners of his eyes, the warmth in his voice, the subtle rhythm of breath that somehow bridged their two eras. And for the first time Eleanor felt the stirrings of hope, fragile, trembling, but undeniable. "I never expected..." She began, then paused, unsure whether words could contain the weight of centuries. "You didn't expect to see me?" Nathaniel asked, soft humour threading through the timbre of his voice. "No, to feel this," she admitted. "Like the garden itself, pulled us together." Their hands brushed accidentally, a spark immediate and impossible yet grounding. Eleanor's heart raced, yet she felt a strange serenity, as though the garden itself were encouraging the union, offering permission to love across the impossible. The tension of disbelief intertwined with the warmth of recognition. Every glance became a silent dialogue, every pause pregnant with meaning. As the days melded, Eleanor learned the subtle art of living between worlds. She photographed the garden not only to preserve its beauty, but to connect with Nathaniel in a language that transcended words. Nathaniel, in turn, revealed the minutiae of 1887 life, the cadence of letters, the mechanical marvels of sundials and garden automata, the delicate etiquette of Victorian afternoons, enriching Eleanor's understanding and bridging centuries with shared experience. Yet, with each discovery came tension. Eleanor noticed small disruptions, a vase slightly out of place, a bird lingering in an unnatural rhythm, the sense that time observed them warily. Nathaniel spoke gently of consequence, of the fragile threads they could not yet see. The romance that blossomed was real, intense, human, but always tempered by the awareness that love across time demanded restraint, respect and courage. One evening, Eleanor lingered beneath the ancient wisteria as the garden shimmered gold with sunset. Nathaniel joined her silently, and for a long while they merely watched shadows stretch and contract over centuries-old stone. He finally whispered, "You belong here, Eleanor. Not just in this garden, but here." Her breath caught, the weight of his words settled into her chest, simultaneously grounding and liberating. The human emotional connection, something that had started with fleeting glimpses, glances and photographs, now bound their hearts in a quiet, insistent insistence. The garden awoke that morning with a strange urgency. Sunlight poured through the high canopy of oaks, casting long, shifting shadows across stone paths and crumbling fountains. Eleanor Whitmore stepped carefully along a moss-lined path, her camera slung loosely at her side. Every rustle of leaves, every distant bird call seemed amplified, as if the garden itself had become aware of the delicate threads they were weaving across time. Nathaniel Ashcroft was already there, tending to a cluster of wisteria blossoms, his linen sleeves rolled neatly to the elbow, hands moving with precision yet softness. The days of quiet exploration had settled into rhythm, shared glances, laughter over trivial discoveries, silent conversations expressed through photographs. Yet beneath the surface, Eleanor felt a tension she could not name. Each photograph seemed to carry weight beyond the frame, capturing not merely light, but echoes that could shift the past in ways she could not yet fully comprehend. Nathaniel noticed her hesitancy. "You are holding back," he said softly, pausing in his work to meet her gaze. "Time here is patient, Eleanor, but it is not infinite." She exhaled, brushing a strand of auburn hair behind her ear. Patient but not forgiving, she thought. "I fear what might happen if I step too far." It was during a walk along the hedge maze that the first true challenge arose. Eleanor discovered a stone bench, etched with initials she did not recognise. Placing her hand on it, she felt a sudden pull. The world around her shifted subtly. She stumbled, heart racing, and when she looked up, the garden appeared older, more pristine, as if centuries had rolled back in seconds. Nathaniel emerged from the mist, his eyes wide. "You found the threshold," he said. "Not every moment can be touched without consequence. You must choose carefully what you see, and what you change." Eleanor's fingers trembled on the camera. Every shutter click now felt loaded with responsibility. She realised that even small interactions might ripple across decades, altering events she did not yet understand. The human desire to reach out, to correct past regrets, tugged at her, but Nathaniel's calm presence reminded her of the fragile balance they must maintain. As the week progressed, their intimacy deepened. Shared dinners by the fountain, quiet walks through lavender-scented alleys, and conversations that spanned philosophy, art, and memory. The romance blossomed not from sudden passion, but through human connection. Laughter, shared vulnerability, and the quiet comfort of being understood. Eleanor found herself drawn irresistibly to Nathaniel, his very presence offering solace from years of solitude and sorrow. But conflict was never far. One afternoon, Eleanor discovered a disturbance in the hedges. A letter, brittle and yellowed, tucked beneath a stone. Its contents hinted at consequences of temporal interference, a misunderstanding in 1887 that could ripple to the present, threatening the continuity of the garden itself. Her pulse quickened. "Eleanor, you cannot linger too long in curiosity," Nathaniel warned, his voice firm yet laced with concern. "Some truths, once altered, cannot be undone." This crisis forced Eleanor to confront the moral dimensions of their connection. The temptation to alter the past, to save or adjust events, clashed with her growing emotional attachment. She wrestled with questions that had no easy answers. Should love triumph over history? Could personal happiness justify the alteration of countless lives across time? The tension reached its peak one evening as storm clouds gathered above Harrowby Hall. Rain fell in heavy sheets, drumming on the stone paths, echoing in the garden's corners. Eleanor, soaked and breathless, photographed the drenched flora, trying to anchor herself to the present. Nathaniel appeared suddenly, soaked but undeterred. Their eyes met, the world around them blurred by the sheets of rain. "Eleanor," he said, voice low and urgent, "we cannot ignore what is at stake. Time has its rules, but our hearts do not." Lightning flashed, illuminating their faces, and for a moment Eleanor felt time stretch infinitely, centuries condensed into a heartbeat. She reached for Nathaniel, the pull of centuries bridging the divide, the emotional weight of their love, and the consequences of their choices coiling together. Tears mingled with raindrops, and Eleanor whispered, "I cannot lose him. Not now, not ever." The storm passed, leaving a garden washed and glistening, petals shining like scattered jewels. Yet the tension remained, unspoken but present, the delicate dance between love and consequence, between the heart's desire and history's course. Eleanor understood that true connection demanded not only courage, but sacrifice and discernment. By the week's end, they faced their first real test. Eleanor discovered that an innocuous photograph she had taken might inadvertently erase a cherished memory of Nathaniel's life, a moment critical to his own future. The revelation shook her, forcing a confrontation not just with Nathaniel but with herself. "We cannot keep pretending. Eleanor admitted, voice trembling. I don't know if we can exist here, together, without changing everything. Nathaniel took her hands, their warmth grounding her. Love finds a way, Eleanor, but we must tread carefully. Our hearts are our compass, but history is our map. That night, Eleanor lay in the manor's guest room, staring at the ceiling, reflecting on the magnitude of their journey. The garden had offered a doorway, but with it came responsibility. And yet, even as the weight pressed down, her heart pulsed with hope, recognition and longing. Nathaniel was no longer merely a shadow in photographs. He was a man of flesh, time and emotion, tethered to her by invisible threads stronger than centuries. The evening sky above Harrowby Hall was painted in molten gold and dusky rose as Eleanor walked along the labyrinthine paths, her heart a restless drum. Every leaf, every curling vine seemed to pulse with anticipation, as if the garden itself were aware that the delicate balance of time teetered on the edge. Nathaniel was already waiting beneath the wisteria, hands clasped behind his back, eyes scanning the horizon. There was a gravity to his presence now, heavier than before, hinting at revelations yet to come. Eleanor approached cautiously, every step measured, every breath shallow with anticipation. Nathaniel! Something feels different tonight, she murmured. He turned to her slowly, expression unreadable. It is different, Eleanor. The garden has given you knowledge, and knowledge carries responsibility. What you've touched, what you've captured, it has consequences we cannot ignore. The words settled heavily between them. Eleanor felt the pull of centuries, the weight of choices, of actions, of love tested against the inexorable flow of time. Every photograph she had taken, every step she had taken in the Victorian world, had nudged the past in ways subtle yet irreversible. The clarity of the moment pressed in. To save their bond, they would each have to confront fears, regrets, and sacrifices. As twilight deepened, the garden shimmered with a soft luminescence, a subtle undulation that marked the overlap of centuries. Eleanor held her camera, hands trembling. If I intervene now, could it undo you? She asked, voice catching in the cool air. Nathaniel stepped closer, brushing a damp strand of hair from her forehead. We are not reckless, he assured. We know the rules now, and love, real love, can guide us if we respect them. But you must choose, Eleanor. Do we preserve history or do we preserve us? Lightning flashed across the sky as if punctuating the choice she faced. Eleanor's mind raced. Decades of solitude, memories of love lost, the ache of quiet yearning, all converged into one moment of decision. Could she risk the stability of time for a love that was already stretching beyond centuries? And yet, every fibre of her being screamed that Nathaniel was worth the uncertainty. The first kiss was hesitant, a brush of lips that carried centuries of unspoken longing. The world around them seemed to hold its breath, petals suspended mid-air, golden light catching droplets of dew like tiny stars. Time, for an instant, became elastic, past, present and future blending into a heartbeat shared between two souls. But the climax was not merely emotional. A sudden tremor ran through the garden, a tree shivered violently, a fountain splashed unnaturally, and Eleanor realised that their connection had stirred forces she could not fully command. The garden had its own consciousness, and it would not allow recklessness. The nexus of time pulsed visibly around them, a shimmering aurora that outlined every flower and path. We must act carefully, Nathaniel warned, taking her hands. The garden is fragile tonight. Even love, if untempered, can fracture the line of time. With careful coordination, Eleanor and Nathaniel worked together, photographing specific points of the garden in sequence, each click a deliberate act of preservation. Shadows lengthened, mist curled, and the garden seemed to respond, aligning centuries in delicate harmony. The storm of uncertainty abated, leaving a profound stillness. During a quiet pause, Eleanor traced the contours of Nathaniel's face, her fingers memorizing the lines that would never exist in her time alone. "I don't want to go back without you," she whispered. Nathaniel's eyes softened. "And you will not. The garden has shown us the possibility. But our future must honour both time and love." The choice crystallized. They would not abandon history, but they would also not surrender to centuries of separation. With that understanding, the nexus of the garden stabilized, petals falling gracefully, sunlight returning to the paths, a delicate harmony restored. Eleanor felt the weight of centuries lift, replaced by a serenity she had not known in decades. The final moment of suspense arrived when Eleanor, guided by Nathaniel, prepared a single photograph to seal the temporal equilibrium. As she clicked, a ripple of light passed over the garden, a visible sigh of approval from the nexus. The mist dispersed, leaving the garden pristine yet suffused with the echoes of every moment shared, every risk taken, every heartbeat that had defied time. Their embrace was long and unhurried, the kind that spoke of recognition, patience, and the enduring nature of love. No words were needed. Centuries of longing, fear, and hope were contained in that single luminous gesture. The garden had tested them, and in passing, it had affirmed the profundity of human connection, the possibility of love beyond temporal limits. As night settled, lanterns flickered along paths, and the first stars pierced the deepening sky. Eleanor and Nathaniel walked slowly, side by side, absorbing the quiet joy that comes from enduring trials together. The garden, still alive with whispers of time, seemed to hum in approval, a silent witness to love that had survived centuries of uncertainty. The romance that had begun with tentative glances and cautious curiosity now thrived, mature and human, rooted in understanding, patience, and shared experience. Eleanor realized that she had not only preserved history, but had also carved a space where love could flourish across the impossible divide of time. And as they paused beneath the wisteria one final time, Eleanor whispered, "We did it. We found our way in together." Nathaniel squeezed her hand, a soft smile curving his lips, and in that moment the garden itself seemed to exhale. Centuries in balance, hearts aligned, love secured. The garden woke to a soft morning mist, the kind that draped every leaf and flower in delicate silver. Eleanor Whitmore walked along the familiar paths, her camera resting lightly against her hip. The events of the past weeks, the time-bending moments, the intensity of love, the moral dilemmas, all seemed suspended, like dew hanging on a spider's web. Nathaniel emerged from the wisteria, smiling gently, the morning sun tracing the line of his features. Their hands found each other naturally, an effortless extension of the intimacy forged in countless shared hours. Eleanor breathed in the scent of wet earth and roses, a grounding aroma that reminded her of why she had come here in the first place, not merely to photograph decay, but to capture the enduring beauty of life, love, and time itself. Nathaniel watched her with quiet admiration, a soft smile playing on his lips. "The garden seems to approve," he murmured. She laughed softly, a sound that carried ease and relief. "It's not the garden approving, it's us finding our balance." Time had settled into a harmonious rhythm. No longer did moments of uncertainty stretch unbearably. The garden, once a site of tension between centuries, now seemed to pulse with calm energy. Eleanor realized that their bond, tested by the delicate threads of temporal consequence, had strengthened not through defiance, but through patience, care, and understanding. Their love was no longer a fragile anomaly. It had become a quiet certainty. Their mornings became a ritual of gentle discovery. Eleanor captured the way light fell across the flowers, how raindrops lingered on petals, and how the world could hold still in its most exquisite moments. Nathaniel accompanied her, sharing stories of 1887 England, The societal expectations, the intricacies of botanical cultivation, the subtle dances of Victorian courtship. Each tale deepened their connection, bridging centuries not only through love, but through shared understanding. At midday, they often paused beneath the wisteria, sitting in comfortable silence. Eleanor's hand would find Nathaniel's, their fingers interlacing naturally. Words were unnecessary. The act itself carried centuries of unspoken affection. She reflected on how life had given her many losses. Yet here, in this garden out of time, she found the profound reward of human connection and emotional intimacy. The moral weight that had burdened her now seemed tempered by wisdom. Eleanor understood that the garden had not only tested her capacity to love, but had taught her the delicate interplay between action and consequence, between desire and restraint. She realized that every photograph, every step, every glance carried significance beyond her immediate perception. One afternoon, as sunlight filtered through the high canopy, Eleanor showed Nathaniel a photograph she had taken the previous evening, a shot of the garden at twilight. Petals frozen mid-air, the light dissolving into gold. "It's perfect," Nathaniel said softly. "It captures everything we've been through, everything we've preserved." Eleanor smiled, feeling a sense of completion she had rarely known. "This is not just a photograph. It's a testament to time, to love, to resilience." As days passed, Eleanor realized that their love had grown beyond the initial intensity of attraction. It was anchored in shared understanding, mutual respect, and the quiet certainty of companionship. They walked together through both the present and the echoes of the past, finding beauty in the gentle rhythm of shared life. Nathaniel's presence became a bridge between centuries, a reminder that connection transcends the linear constraints of time. The garden itself seemed to respond to their harmony. Birds sang with renewed vigour, petals drifted lazily in the air, and sunlight filtered through the trees in warm, golden shafts. Every corner of the garden bore witness to a love that had endured trials and emerged unshaken, not through dramatic heroics, but through the quiet grace of emotional maturity. Eleanor spent mornings documenting subtle changes, the growth of moss, the gentle decay of leaves, the way sunlight moved across the fountains. Nathaniel would assist her, often offering historical context that made the present moment richer and more poignant. They laughed over small mishaps, shared contemplative silences, and explored the garden with the wonder of people discovering something new for the first time. Through these days, Eleanor reflected on her own life, on losses endured and lessons learned. She recognized that love had been present even in absence, the memory of lost friends, the quiet ache of solitude, all leading her here to a moment of fulfillment she had almost believed impossible. She was 52, seasoned by experience, and yet her heart felt rejuvenated by a love that was deep, human and enduring. As evening approached, Eleanor and Nathaniel sat beneath the ancient wisteria once more. The sky above was painted in hues of lavender and rose, and the first stars peeked shyly through. Eleanor rested her head against Nathaniel's shoulder, feeling the steady beat of his heart. "We've preserved everything," she whispered. Nathaniel kissed the top of her head softly. "Not everything," he replied. "Just what matters most, us." In this moment, Eleanor felt a profound understanding. Love does not always demand grand gestures or heroic acts. Sometimes it is the quiet constancy, the gentle persistence, and the emotional presence that truly endures. Nathaniel's touch, his laughter, his shared knowledge, and their silent companionship were testament to a love that had crossed time and remained intact, anchored by emotional truth rather than mere circumstance. Their final walk through the garden was slow, deliberate, each step a meditation on all they had overcome. Eleanor paused at the fountain, the water catching the evening light in sparkling arcs. Nathaniel took her hand in his, their fingers intertwined, a gesture more eloquent than any words. They did not speak. They did not need to. The garden, the photographs, the history, all converged into this single serene moment of completion. As night fully settled, lanterns flickered along the garden paths, illuminating their journey. Eleanor felt a deep sense of peace, a knowledge that while time may bend, stretch and shift, the emotional connections forged with care, respect and sincerity remain indelible. She raised her camera one last time, capturing the garden bathed in moonlight, petals floating like silver whispers. The photograph was not only a record of place, but a testament to love that endures across the impossible expanses of time. Eleanor and Nathaniel paused beneath the wisteria one final time. She looked up into his eyes, reading the same recognition, the same quiet joy mirrored there. We've navigated centuries, faced consequence and found each other. Nathaniel's hand covered hers. The garden has taught us the ultimate truth, he said softly. Love, when nurtured with patience and respect, finds its way. Always. The night deepened, but the garden glowed softly, a living witness to the triumph of human connection, emotional courage, and the serene completion of a love story that had begun in curiosity and ended in understanding, hope and quiet light.